Nancy Stern, a divorced preschool teacher from New York, was living an ordinary life until another more glamorous woman with the same name moved into her building and was murdered. If this sounds like the plot of a good book, that's exactly what it is. It's Jane Heller's 7th novel called Name Dropping. Jane, good morning.
Good morning. Nice to be here.
Thanks for coming in. And the plot thickens from there.
Plot thickens. The story is about these two women with the same name. Nancy Stern is a preschool teacher in New York, and her life is kind of in a rut, and all of a sudden this other woman, this glamorous woman who interviews celebrities, moves into her apartment building. And suddenly the heroine's life changes because a man calls one day looking for the other Nancy Stern, gets her by mistake, asks her for a blind date, and she thinks, you know what, this guy doesn't know the other Nancy Stern, I'm taking the date. And so she goes on the date, pretends to be the other Nancy Stern, and the plot does thicken. And
now this guy that she starts dating, she falls for him, and she had every intention to tell him the truth at the end of the first date.
Right.
But doesn't.
But doesn't, because what happens in this book is that we all kind of have a need to live vicariously through somebody else. And she thinks, well, this other Nancy Stern's life is more glamorous than mine. I'm just going to see how it feels. I'm sure there are people out there that wonder, what's it like to be Julie Chen and for a day? and so that's what happens. She keeps the game going, and it goes too far.
It sounds like someone who hasn't read it that the moral of the story would be like, don't lie. But is there a moral to the story?
The moral of the story, and I write...
Without revealing the end?
No, I won't. Except that it's happy. I always have happy endings. But the moral is that envy is a huge waste of energy, and that, you know, yes, we all have this feeling of wanting to drool over somebody else's life, but we should really just look at our own life and accept what's there. Sounds corny, but it's true.
Where did you get the idea? Were you ever in Nancy Stern's shoes, where there was someone else you kind of wish you could live vicariously through or have their life?
No, it was really that my agent, whose name is Ellen Levine, I met her and I said, I know a couple of other Ellen Levines in New York, and she said, oh, there are lots of us, and we all get each other's mail and phone calls by mistake. And I just filed that anecdote away and thought someday it'll make a good setup for a romantic comedy. So that's how Name Dropping came
So there is
out.
a bit of truth to this book, but only that snippet.
That little, yeah.
Now, you did a good job selling, I think, selling me on reading the book, which I did read. But that's because you used to be a publicist for...
I did.
How did it switch around? You were a publicist for other authors.
Right. For 10 years I worked in publicity, and I set up interviews like the one we're doing, and I would sit in the green room with nervous authors saying, what's to be nervous about? Just make sure you say the name of your book 3 times and everything will be great. And then it was my turn when my first book came out in '94, and I got on one of the other morning shows, and I was a wreck, and I was sitting in the green room popping Xanaxes, and I got on the air, and the host said, so Jane, how does it feel going from being a promoter of writers to being one? And I said, I don't know, I'm heavily sedated. And she laughed, as has everyone who I've told that story to over and over, but I'm better. Only took 1 Xanax this morning.
Oh, you did take one. And that was 6 years ago.
Yeah, right.
Your last book, Sis Boom Ba, Julia Roberts bought the rights to make that into a movie?
Well,
a production company?
Technically what it is Joe Roth, who used to run Disney Studios, optioned it for Julia Roberts' production company. So we're hoping that the third time's the charm, because Joe Roth optioned my 2 previous books.
We'll be looking for it. Thank you so much. The book is called Name Dropping by Jane Heller.
Thanks.